You can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to Cornhusker Corner with Blake.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I'm Brooks.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And you better bet your bottom dollar that these two brothers know how to handle business.
Here's a hand up to Thunder, who gives it back to Mike Stokes. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out. Yeah! 40. It is very close. 15, 10.
Welcome to Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like this podcast. As always, we're your host Blake and my brother Brooks. Sorry, I'm all out of sorts because we actually freaking won a game.
Yes.
Whoa. In the 3 years since we started this podcast, very few and far between that we've been able to talk about a Nebraska win. So we are going to savor this while we can. But as always, remember to please like and subscribe to the channel. We love doing these. That'll really help us continue to soldier on, even in the face of defeat and this week victory. Follow us on on X or Twitter at @CHusker_corner and on Instagram, Cornhusker Corner. All right, let us get into it because Nebraska, as you can tell by our little handle here, balled out last night. The defense played outstanding, but really the national news everybody's talking about is our quote-unquote backup, Heinrich Haarburg, coming in and really showing that the dude knows how to play football. He knows how to play football. So I don't know. How you feeling about this week? I know we both stayed up late watching the Colorado game, which we're not going to really talk about because it was 2 a.m. by the time I went to sleep for that bullshit. Yeah, no, how you feeling about our win last night? And yeah, some thoughts from there.
Yeah, so it was really encouraging to see. There was a lot of encouraging things last night, of course, because it was ended up being true. What felt like what used to be the first game of the year. That type of game where, they come out all physical, looking like the dominant team, but then maybe they need some things to get figured out. But over the course of the game, they get it figured out and then end up looking good when it's all said and done. That used to be how we started years off. And I don't want to say that those first two games didn't matter. They totally mattered, but I feel like the team almost has to look at this and say, okay, the year's started over now.
Yeah.
Let's go 1-0 every week from here on out.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a good slate clearing game for them. So
Absolutely.
Definitely encouraging. And I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I basically made it known the official position of this podcast last night.
Yeah.
Are we in agreement on that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so yeah. So the Cornhusker Corner official position of this podcast is that Heinrich Haarburg needs to be the starting quarterback for Nebraska moving forward. Why don't you go ahead and speak on that? I'm going to tweet out this link real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So even before this week's game, I was pretty high on Haarburg, just from the little I had seen of him, and I had seen enough of Jeff Sims. And for those that may be listening for the first time or, just don't know my background, I didn't play football at a high level, but I feel like I played at a high enough level. I played a year or so in college. I was a quarterback, and then a wide receiver. I know how to read defenses. I know a little bit more than the average football fan, right? So when I look at quarterbacks, I can kind of look at it from their point of view. I'm very sympathetic towards quarterbacks in terms of, because people are so hard on them and they don't not realize how hard it is to sit there, think about the line, read the defense, then your mechanics just make the throw, and just do all that without thinking. It's so hard to do, right?
Yes.
But seeing that, there are guys that can do it and there are guys that can't. There are guys that have the skills and there are guys that don't. And then there are guys that know how to play the position that may not have the physical attributes that another guy might. Right. And that's how I was looking at, like, because if you look at Jeff Sims, right, he is a physical specimen. he needs to be on the field in some sort of capacity. And it's just kind of highlighted. I don't know how good he is at reading defenses, right? Mm-hmm. So I saw Haarburg last night multitude of times read the defense, either tuck it or make the throw on a second, third read quickly, right in an instant, right? So I really think that he has a good motor to run. I mean, he almost ran for 100 yards last night. And, he can throw the ball really well and accurately. And the contour, what I didn't expect is the Verduzco is still in him.
Yeah, the arm angles. The arm angles. Yeah, for sure.
Right before he threw that touchdown pass to Fedoni.
Mm-hmm. He even altered his arm angle a little bit on that one.
He did.
Because there was a window, like a sort of diagonal window he had to fit the ball through to get it to Fedoni.
Yeah, so there was one, but the one right before that he just kind of tossed to the flat to Fedoni. He literally almost there was a pitcher in the major league. Oh God, it was only a couple of years ago that scoops. I think he's still playing, but
submarine. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, like a submarine style throw, and that's how he did it. And I was just like, how did he get it around the defender? It wasn't a big gain, but it was an impressive throw. It was impressive. So I look at him and I think you get that guy confidence and you get that guy an offensive line. And this offense could be clicking.
I completely agree.
Yeah,
I completely agree. Look, I want to touch on something you said, which was about, some people have it and some people don't. And up until the Adrian Martinez era, that had sort of been the story of Nebraska quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. They step in and, I mean, let's put it this way, from the Callahan era through all the way through to probably Adrian Martinez, you would know pretty much right off the bat when a quarterback played if they were going to be good or not. I don't want to say there was no development in those guys. I think some of the guys, Taylor Martinez and Tommy Armstrong, developed over time. But a lot of those guys you saw right off the bat if they were going to be a good, efficient quarterback for you or if they were not. Now, when Adrian came in, he sort of threw that archetype out the window because he showed you a lot of things that suggested that he could be the guy, but then he would come up and be the, not very clutch in very key moments. So I really think that the story of this quarterback room so far this year has been what I was talking about before, whereas Jeff Sims has shown you what he is. He's shown you at multiple schools, and people downplay Georgia Tech. They're like, oh, well, he was at Georgia Tech before, so maybe he'll be good here. And, I see where they're coming from, coming into a different offense. Maybe something could happen. But the guy is the leading turnover machine in the quarterback position in all of college football for the course of time he's played football. And they weren't playing, FCS teams every week at Georgia Tech. They were playing an ACC schedule. So it's a good sample size to really see what kind of player he is. And again, I don't think Jeff Sims is a bad guy. I think, matter of fact, last night I thought he showed a lot of sportsmanship and a lot of team leadership.
High character.
Night. Yes.
I was 100%. Actually thinking the other day last night, I was thinking because honestly, I want to touch on this a little bit. Who knows how hurt he actually is? There might be.
Let's get our tinfoil hats on.
Yeah, let's get the tinfoil hats on there. But if you remember Oklahoma 2 years ago, Spencer Rattler was playing like absolute dog crap. Mm-hmm. Caleb Williams comes in and his legend grows, and we know where it goes from there. How did Spencer Rattler handle that? Terribly. He had a terrible attitude. He was sitting on the bench. He was not engaged. He was not a leader. Jeff Sims proved last night why Rule sticks up for him. Why Rule sticks by him, because he is a leader. He's a man of high character, which you want those people on the team and you want them engaged because that helps your team.
Yes. And
that's why I say he needs to get on the field.
I agree with that.
I just don't think that he needs to be the quarterback.
Handling snaps. We don't need him in any position to be handling snaps. I mean, I'm sorry, you watch quarterbacks, even turnover-prone quarterbacks, dropping a snap like that is so rare. And most of the time when you drop a snap like that, you know, It's a quick little reminder, pay attention when the snap comes, and
Yeah.
you move on. You clear the slate and you move on. Or that it's bad snaps. We've seen that at Nebraska sometimes, not necessarily the quarterback's fault. When Juergens was a freshman, he had issues with that. But I don't know, like what I was saying before about you being able to see almost definitively, pretty much right off the bat, if they're going to be operating at a high level in the offense or not. With Heinrich, it was so obvious from the jump that this dude is confident. He's ready for the moment. He's fiery. I mean, you could see the team sort of rallying around him as he was running dudes over. I mean, look, we talked about Jeff Sims and how good of a runner he is, and he is a good runner. I'll stand by that. He's a good, and I think he's even a physical runner. He wasn't sliding, but I think Heinrich proved last night that maybe he's not quite the athletic specimen that Sims is, but he's still plenty athletic, and he's an incredibly efficient runner with very good vision. It was awesome to see, like, our QB draw game last night was deadly. I mean, like, there was moments where it was like, if you had the wrong quarterback in there, they'd run right into the coverage, right, or run right into the D line because there was only one little hole here or one little hole there. But Heinrich didn't freak out. Found the hole, showed a little patience, and then took off when he needed to. It was awesome to see.
Outside of some like missed blocks here and there, that's absolutely true. Yes. And people like to harp on like this play or that play. We went like 3 and out or what. Like, okay, we scored 35 points last night. Before that, our highest scoring game was 14. That's 2 touchdowns, one of which came with 1 second left in the game versus it was basically like Northern Illinois' score last night in the fourth quarter. So really like 10 points. That's what I really think is really what you have to compare it to with like starter on starter in the heat of the game. So you look at that, and again, in competition. But I will say Northern Illinois' defensive line, they're good. They're good, and they came to play. And I didn't know how they would play really because Boston College is They took Florida State to the wire. But a lot of that was due to Florida State's mismanagement, mistakes here and there, just kind of being careless. And they were the clearly better team. But Northern Illinois, I watched that game and they dominated Boston College. They dominated them. So
look, we're talking about a Northern Illinois team that's played 3 games so far. They've played Nebraska, they've played Southern Illinois, and they've played Boston College. So then let me shift the conversation, and I know y'all are going to hate me for bringing this up, but there's a point to it. Then you look at a team like Colorado. Colorado played TCU, then us, then Colorado State. So you compare the 3 teams that each of Northern Illinois and Colorado played. This is an apt comparison. Northern Illinois is 35 positions higher ranked as a defense than Colorado. So that being said, I don't want to say that. I don't know. There's more to that because Colorado is, at the end of the day, a Pac-12 team. And so there's going to be more athletes in certain positions on a Colorado versus on a Northern Illinois. But that whole point is just to illustrate that, like, look, we operated. Finally, we operated as an offense. And you can turn your nose up at the fact that it's Northern Illinois or what, but they're not a terrible team. No. And their defense is ranked close to the defenses we've already faced and hadn't been able to operate against. So it's a stark comparison. Well, I mean, look, we finally got going because I think the beginning of that game, the way it played out, where we had a scripted drive where we scored a touchdown, and then we come out and we get bad field position to start off our second drive, and somebody whiffs a block. I think it was supposed to be a designed run. It was supposed to be a draw. From what I heard, it doesn't seem like that because he kept the ball for so long and he was looking to throw. But that's what everyone was saying. I don't think that's the case because it looks like he was trying to throw. But anyway, it wasn't really Heinrich's fault. I wouldn't put that on him because, like we talked about last night, it's you have to get a feel for the game when you're in there at quarterback, especially when the general rule for quarterbacks in 2023 at practice is, especially during the season, they're not going to be fully rushed. They're not going to sack the quarterback in practice. So that was a moment for Heinrich that's like, whoa, okay, the rush is coming a little fast. Got to get rid of that ball quicker next time. But it also wasn't his fault. They completely whiffed on a block, and he didn't have much time in there either way. So he gets a turnover right off the bat. And the first thing I'm thinking is, okay, now here we are. Got another turnover. Now it's Heinrich's opportunity to prove that he's not going to let this spiral into 3 more. He's not going to he's going to stay calm. What's next? And he's going to operate the offense from here on out. And he did that. It was wonderful to see. He didn't let that moment affect him at all. And the defense came. I mean, it obviously helps whenever you give them the ball in that position, and then the defense just steps up, and you have so much support on the other side of the ball. It's almost, if you're a conservative not that Heinrich's conservative, but if you're just trying to operate an offense at an average to above average level, which is really all we wanted from Heinrich last night. Yeah. It's really encouraging when you look on the other side of the ball and you have so much support where you don't really have to worry about, oh no, now we're down 10-7, or oh no, now it's tied. So yeah, it was very complimentary football. It really was.
Absolutely. And you just and by no means did he play a perfect game.
No.
Didn't, by no means. And there are very few perfect games from quarterbacks just in general. So and when you're being hypercritical especially in a situation, if he was just the starter from the front and that game played last night, you would have no qualms at all. You'd have, oh my God, what a great game. We finally put it together or whatever. But since there is this little bit of controversy now, you're looking at every single play, every single decision. That's what you're looking at. So you have to be really cognizant of the fact that, like, look at it in the grand scheme of things. Dude played really, really well. Really well. And again, on a defense that is not bad. Their front line, those dudes, I mean, what'd they get? Like 4 sacks, 5 sacks? They got like a good amount of pressure.
They definitely got pressure on him for sure. I know he was sacked a number of times.
Yeah, and we were unable to really, really establish our just ground and pound run game.
Yes.
We just were. Like, we weren't unable to do that.
Yeah, until late in the game at the very least, for sure. I do think that one of the encouraging things offensively about this game, though, is that late in the game, like everyone was talking about even midway through the game, that's like, okay, we're doing some good things, but this offense doesn't really have an identity yet. Yeah. And I feel like, I don't know if it's not 100% established yet what our identity is, but I feel like late in the game, they started to find it a little bit. They started to say, okay, we're going to rely on the run. We're going to feed our guys the rock and wear this team down. And then we're going to take shots when it's appropriate to take shots. I think that just Heinrich being able to operate the offense at that level shows a couple things. It shows that we do have weapons. People like to say that we don't have weapons. I don't think we have playmakers in the sense of like, oh my God, these dudes are going to be on Sports Center everywhere. I don't think we have those guys. But I do think we have guys that can get the job done in certain situations. And but again, what I was going to say, Heinrich being able to operate the offense, I do think, and us actually having a sample size of the offense operating finally does give us a little bit more of a glimpse into what our strengths and weaknesses are as an offense. I do think the criticisms of our wide receiver room are probably appropriate. I think they're good wide receivers. I think we have a lot of decent possession receivers. I really do think we do, but I don't think we have a Trey Palmer. I don't think we have a legitimate deep over the top threat. Which, you take what you can get. We ran the ball last night and we did well. But again, if you're going to point out one criticism and one weakness for this offense, it's the deep game. That's what it is at this point.
And really, so I'm showing the stats from the game now, right? So you look at here, and I mean, his QBR 51. That's not great, but that's literally just on passing stats.
Better than 7 or 33. I mean, that's what
Rocky Lombardi 7.
Dang, that's pretty bad too. But Sims, like the first game, he had a 7. In the second game, he had like a 33. So it's 51. I'll take 51 all day, every day.
You're right. He averaged 6 and 2 touchdowns and 158 yards. Only didn't connect on 10 passes. Some of those were short. I haven't counted pass for pass, but we took a couple deep shots and they didn't connect. Like a lot of them didn't connect. He had the one to Washington right at the beginning of the game that connected. But apart from that, I'm trying to think of a really like true deep ball. And he missed Tommy Hill because I think if the pocket wasn't starting to collapse, I think he hits him there.
Probably.
And that's kind of the case for a lot of those deep things. Like he was rushed a lot of the time when you need a little bit more time to throw the deep one.
Well, and even on his misses, it's not like he was missing in the wrong spot either.
Absolutely.
On that Tommy Hill throw especially, it's like if you're in a frantic mode and you got to just throw that ball, that's where you throw it. You throw it over to the sideline and you hope he makes a play. Yeah. And it was thrown a little far for where Tommy was on the field. Tommy tried to lay out and make a play for it. I think there's a lot of situations and I think there's a parallel universe where they make that play. That's my point. Is he threw it to the right spot in that situation, even though the play wasn't made. Then there was another deep ball that he tried to find Marcus that was more of like a traditional over the top deep ball, and he just threw it. I mean, I guess he just threw it so far that nobody could have made a play on the ball. Like that was the other thing I saw. He has a strong arm, man.
Oh yeah, he does. He does.
Yeah.
I mean, but if you're going to do that, that's the ball you have to throw, right?
Yep.
And no, I want to touch on a couple of things here. One, AG had a really good game.
Agreed.
He had to come in because unfortunately, Ramir Johnson got hurt. We don't know the extent of that as far as I'm aware right now. So hopefully he's okay because the dude's explosive and you know he's better being on our offense, especially with the lack of consistent playmakers that we have.
Yes.
But Anthony Grant had a good game,
Agreed.
And he showed his little shiftiness, but he also showed. You know, I've been really critical on him. Just in terms of hitting the hole. Sometimes he dances a little bit too much. He did a good job of reading, and he has really good field vision. He just does. So, I mean, he had a good game. One touchdown. The one he actually scored on, that was actually a broken down play, bounced it out, was able to beat the guy out of the corner. Really good.
Great handoff by Chubba.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, if you look at the breakdown here, I mean, you see like Haarburg, 98 yards. I said at the beginning of the season, we're not going to be successful if the quarterback is our leading rusher. And right now, both Haarburg, if Haarburg was in the couple past games, and then Sims, like our leading rushers have been our quarterbacks.
Yes.
And I don't think, especially in the Big Ten, that is sustained for success.
No.
You have to be more strategic about it than they're being. Especially like I love Haarburg's competitiveness, you know, taking on the hit. You can do that a couple times. He's doing it every single time.
Agreed.
And he even said in his press conference, like, yeah, in the moment, like, I'm like, yeah, no, this will get the guys going. And he just goes. He's like, now I'm feeling a little bit. Yeah, dude. I mean, you're not going to be able to do that all year. Like, take that as a little bit of a learning curve there, and maybe slide a couple times.
Need to get Nebraska baseball head coach Will Bolt into the building to teach him how to slide.
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, you look at this, Tommy Hill probably could have had a good run. That defender made a good play here.
He did.
I do like that they're mixing him in because it shows that they're trying to get the most athletic people involved. And he's basically playing both ways. He hasn't really broken out on offense yet. Really come into his own on defense. Made a couple of really good plays.
I think still on Tommy Hill on defense, though, one criticism I have with Tommy Hill on defense is like, bro, the number one thing that will get you called for pass interference is not turning around for the ball and defending it like you're playing a basketball game. Sure. That's what he does. If he's in a bind and the ball's in the air and he knows what receivers it's going to, he's going to run up to that receiver with his back to the ball and hold his hands up as if he's like defending somebody in basketball. And that just doesn't work. It doesn't matter if you don't touch him. If you're not looking for the ball, they're going to call that 100 times out of 100 because you got to him before the ball got to him. So while that one pass interference they called on him, I think that it could have been a no call at the same time. But from an officiating standpoint, if you get to the receiver before the ball gets to the receiver and you touch him in any way, And especially if you're not looking for the ball, they're going to call it 100 times out of 100. So Tommy is a good enough athlete that run towards that receiver and, and turn around while you're doing it. Look for the ball. Because if you look for the ball and you're making a play on the ball, that's when they won't call it, because, it's a jump ball situation. So a lot of times they'll give you grace if you're looking for the ball. So yeah, but I do think for the most part, we haven't seen Tommy just like loafing left and right and missing, and biting down in the backfield, and you're muted. But so we haven't seen that so far.
No. Yeah. The start that he had last year was really bad. Really bad. No, he's not doing that. He's not biting down on every single curl go. Like he's really like he's playing good defense.
Yes, he had the one moment against Colorado, where he led. I think it was I don't remember which player, but he had one of those moments against Colorado.
You're gonna
that was a big
have
play.
Those. Again, nitpicky.
Right.
If you look at every single play, you can find every single player on the field on every single team. You're going to find a play here and there that are like, ooh, dude, no. But again, he's playing good defense.
Agreed.
I don't think of him as a liability that I did think about last year a little bit. But let's go into the receiving. It was kind of by committee, but there was one guy that really stood out. And that is Mr. Thomas Fidone.
Yes.
That dude, the more that he gets touches, his confidence is going to rise. And I really think that they're going to start really getting him the ball, because he made a couple catches. I mean, if you look at his stats, he only had 4 receptions. He had 1 touchdown, and then the one before that was like 3 yards. He had 1 catch on the sideline to keep the drive going that eventually scored a touchdown. That might have been his touchdown.
Yeah, it might have been the same drive.
It might have been the same drive.
But that sideline catch, I mean, the touchdown's great, but the sideline catch was his best play of the game. That showed a level of athleticism that, quite frankly, is surprising for someone of his size. I've heard all kinds of stories about how athletic he is, and how people walk into the building and they're like, oh my gosh, that guy's like George Kittle. Yeah, he's incredibly athletic for his size. I'll put it that way. I don't know what his career is going to play out like, but man, does he have the tools. He has the tools.
Yeah.
The toe tap was just dirty. I mean, for that size to have that much body control in that situation, it is impressive. It was impressive.
No, absolutely. And he did have the little like the kind of head turn and like, what are you doing? Like when he scored the touchdown, he like silences. And the dude's, I texted you at the time. I was like, I think he's just used to playing away.
Yeah, man.
Like at this point, because he hasn't played a lot of football for us.
That was funny. I think what it was is there's some Nebraska writers. One of them's on Twitter. Also Cornhusker Juan, who is a notorious Nebraska troll. All talking crap about Fidone for all these years that he's been injured and been sort of, hyped up, but then we don't see it and all the stuff I think somebody tweeted out after the game, the first game, that was like, I think they said something like, I think we all need to put the notion of Thomas Fidone being great to bed. I think it's time to put that to bed. And then he responded something like, "Don't worry, I'll put you to sleep soon," or something. "Don't worry, I'll put it to sleep soon." So I think really what that was from him was him silencing the critics. Like, I'm here. But it just the visual of him catching a touchdown pass, everyone freaking out, and then you're at home.
No, even the commenter said something like that was a little strange. Like, I know he probably in his head probably had something about it, and last year I felt so bad for him last year because he's gotten hurt in camp now, like, well, the previous 2 seasons 2 times, been unable to like play. And I follow him on Instagram, right? So I see, and I said this last year, that like I see him like focusing on the right things, putting in work, really trying to be great and stay focused and really, really work. And you want people like that to succeed, even if it's not for you. Like, you want them to succeed. You see them doing the right things, because people that do the right things and work their ass off. You want them to be successful. So to see him have a game like last night, that's only going to help because he doesn't lack confidence and he doesn't lack talent. So it's good to see those in-state kids too, Nebraska kid and Nebraska kid, touchdown pass that probably warmed the hearts of everybody that knew that was a thing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Always is cool because if you're a Nebraska fan and you've been a Nebraska fan your whole life, especially if you grew up going to games and stuff, most of us have those pictures of, us with Little Red or us with Herbie Husker. Or if you're lucky enough, like Heinrich Haarburg, he has a cool picture of when he was a little kid and he's sitting there and he's posing there on the field with Tom Osborne. So that was cool to see, that type of thing come to fruition this Saturday. It's heartwarming. It's heartwarming because these kids have grown up wanting to play for Nebraska their whole life. When that, like we talked about when we were talking about Dylan Raiola, it's like you grew up being 8 years old, 9 years old, playing backyard football, and what were you envisioning in your mind? You were envisioning Husker. Yeah. You were envisioning Memorial Stadium, 90,000 strong. You were envisioning Alan Parsons' project, the tunnel walk, all the stuff, man. So it was really cool to see that last night.
Before I get off this page, I just want to show some stuff here. So the defense, I just want to mention this. The Nash Hutchmacher had a day. He was all over the place. So kudos on him because he was one of those people in the offseason, especially a lot of sports writers were kind of just writing off as a bust. And he's shown not just this game, but all year it's coaching.
He's a problem in the middle for teams, man. He's so good in there.
He's so good.
Yeah. He's a house. He really is.
This defense just in general, you just look at this and they swarm the ball so well. My wife even said every time their other team is they have the ball and they're trying to go, there's just a swarm. And I was like, that's good. That's a good thing.
Can you go to the Northern Illinois total offensive stats? What yards they had for total offense and stuff? Because there was a stat I saw that I want to just confirm. Team stats. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so
Volvo. Thank you.
So they had 100. Go down team stats. So they had 149 yards. Down there, you see the team stats box down at the bottom. Yeah, so they had 149 total yards. So on that last drive when we had our seconds in, it was like a 76-yard drive.
Yeah.
So you minus 149 minus 76.
Yeah.
149 minus 76. Our starters gave up 73 yards of total offense in the entire game that they played. Yeah. That's a performance. I know it's Northern Illinois. It's not Michigan, but it's also, it's not, I wouldn't say it's Mercer either, or one of these teams that some of these people play. So it is impressive. 73 yards given up by the black shirt defense is one of their better performances we've seen in a long time. One of their more complete performances we've seen in a long time. Because when that starting defense was out there, they're like, oh my God, they're going to give this up right here. Yeah. There was none of that. Never. They maybe had 2 first downs against our starting defense. And it was impressive to watch. It really was. They balled out, man. Our defense completely balled out, and we're complete too. There's no we balled out, but we didn't get any pressure on the quarterback, or we got pressure on the quarterback, but we can't cover, or we're weak in the middle. There's none of that. It's such a complete unit. It feels like.
Yeah.
Kudos to Tony White, man. Kudos to Tony White.
No, absolutely.
He is a hell of a coordinator.
One thing I want to say here: no interceptions. The defense did get an interception and should have had another one. Sans, I don't know.
I think he stepped out, bro. I saw it. I thought he stepped out.
Yeah.
People will say he didn't, but it's look at his foot, man.
If it was called an interception on the field, it would have stayed.
Yeah, because they didn't have a good enough angle.
They
But
didn't
like
have
I'm
a good
telling you,
angle.
there's a definitive
Yeah.
angle out there somewhere where you can see his foot is out of bounds.
Yeah.
So that one didn't worry me that
good
much.
On,
Good
on-
play though.
good play. I mean, good on them, and I mean, geez, you like to see that.
Yeah.
And there's something
Javen Wright
that,
coming up with one at the end too. I like that.
Yeah.
I like Javen Wright. He's coming into his own. He's such a good athlete at that position, and yeah, there's just athletes everywhere. It feels like, which is it's funny. Dad and I had a discussion about a week and a half ago, leading up to the Colorado game, where he was saying, and it was just ignorance, not stupidity, ignorance, which is just lack of knowledge. He was saying, well, Nebraska's going to lose to Colorado because they just don't have enough speed on the back end of their defense. Is essentially the gist of what he was saying, and I got mad because I was like, no, like that's just not the truth. That's not the truth. Like the back end of their defense is fine. It's so I think that's just been proved. Like through 3 weeks, our back end of our defense, they're some good athletes. They get after it, and it's never just one guy making the tackle either. It's always a swarm of guys making the tackle. It's very encouraging.
Yeah, and you always you look at the past couple of years of the teams that were supposed to beat handily, and most of the time they've been close games, like nail biters. One, this game didn't feel ever close.
No,
It really didn't. It just
I wasn't
feel
worried.
like I was never worried. I wanted us to score more, but I never thought we were going to lose.
Yeah, the one moment where I was like, we got to step up here was right after that fumble. I was like, okay, let's see how we respond. But I wasn't like sitting there worried because I knew that our defense was about to trot out onto the field.
Yeah.
So as long as our defense is there, like that was my point. I think even after the Minnesota game was like, look, we play physical. I think we're a good tackling team, and just playing physical and being a good tackling team will keep you in a lot of games. Yeah. And then we had to put the other facet of that together, which is playing clean on the offensive side of the ball. If we do those three things, physical, good tackling, clean on the offensive side of the ball, I think we're a bowl team this year. I think we are. I still do.
Should be. We really should be. Because especially if you looked at the other, like how the other Big Ten West teams are faring, and just the other teams that we have to play this year, the Michigan States and Maryland. You just look at them and you're like, we can do it, especially with our defense. Like you were saying, it's within reach.
Yes.
Not a sure thing. You have to go out. You have to execute.
Yes.
Again, we're 1-2. But the talent is there, and you have to go out and execute. And it's
let me put it to you this way.
It's going to be interesting. So
let me put it to you this way.
Yeah.
Iowa is a team that plays this style of football that we're watching Nebraska play every year. And it seems like every other year they're in the Big Ten title.
Yep.
So it's just not unreasonable for us to be like, okay, we play good defense, we play good tackling.
Yeah.
Like we can have success this year. We can still have success this year. Okay. So let's move on topics.
Yeah, move on. So starting QB, and this was a topic from last week, and because we didn't know, and it kind of sounds like the staff knew what was going to happen right away. Like,
right.
Either tinfoil hat or if Sims just can't go.
Right.
But starting QB, I did find it interesting. If Sims was not healthy enough, he dressed. I found that interesting. And I did see a couple other talking heads out there point that out, but I saw that during the game and I was like, that's like if he wasn't good enough to go and they just want to rest him and they want Haarburg is just gonna be the backup to start because Sims can't go. Why is he dressed?
Right.
It's interesting.
Well, I mean, the way I read that whole situation with him dressing Sims out was basically like there were things that Northern Illinois' defense did after the first drive to adjust for Heinrich Haarburg being the starting quarterback. They did some things differently that they probably wouldn't have done with Sims in the game, just because Nebraska does a few things differently with Heinrich than they do with Jeff Sims. But with that being said, I just think it was more of the fact of like Matt Rule playing a little bit of poker out there and not wanting to show his hand until the very final moment, because it's important. I mean, he even said it in his press conference. Someone asked him like, how important do you think it was to get out there and to score on your first drive? And he even said it just like this. He was like, I think we needed that. And so I think there's an element of we need to catch these dudes by surprise as much as we can. So I don't know if I would read too much into that as far as supposedly Jeff Sims was the third string quarterback for the night, and he would have been used in emergency situations had we needed to use him. And so I think that's all it is. The situation is he was healthy enough to dress out, to walk around on the sidelines and not look gimpy. And he was healthy enough to potentially, if we were in a situation we needed to use him, to try to operate out there. So that I'm just reading into it like that. Now, as far as this week goes, I mean, supposedly he has a high ankle sprain, and you and I both know that ankles are weird, and that sometimes you can sometimes you can roll an ankle in the middle of a game, go onto the sideline, walk it off, and play the next series. And other times you roll it, you feel maybe all right, but it just lingers for weeks. And so it'll depend on how that heals. But again, I just think the efficiency that Haarburg showed, I think he proved it to us. I really do. I think he proved it.
You know what? I do too. And we're not the head coach. We're not getting paid millions of dollars. We have not coached or played at that level that they're operating on. And if we can see it, you'd have to think, right? You have to think, because I'm not talking about making plays here and there, because I think Jeff Sims can make plays. Don't get me wrong. I think he can. He's shown that he can in certain things. But the intangibles that of reading a defense, throwing the ball away and not trying to force it, tucking it and running when you just feel pressure and it doesn't feel right. There are certain things to protect the ball and the offense, conserve drives, and keep the game within reach that Haarburg did, even when the offense was not humming. Those tell you a better story than when it does.
Right. Like there's a thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a thing in music called playing in the pocket, and it's such a hard thing to really put your finger on if you haven't done it before. But really what it is like there's slight differences in the nuances of, like, for instance, how a bass player would play. Whereas if you have one bass player who's playing in the pocket, you feel it. Everyone feels it, even if they don't know it. Versus if you have another bass player in there who might be playing the right notes, but something's just off. And that's sort of how I feel about quarterback in a sense, whereas it's almost a feel thing. Like obviously you can look at stats and you can look at the actual productivity of it, but there's more than that. There's the intangibles of being the quarterback, and that aspect of it is very much a feel thing. And I don't know about you, but about 3 or 4 drives into the game, even though we weren't being super productive yet, it got to the point where I was like, I'm not nervous anymore. Like when our offense is out on the field, I'm not cringing when we're going to throw the ball. I'm not nervous. And what that tells me is there's a chemistry there going on with Haarburg and with the team. And I think that there's something to that, because a lot of these guys have been on the team for multiple years and they know Heinrich really well. Thomas Vadoni and Heinrich were roommates. And Gabe's known Heinrich Gabe's obviously known Heinrich for a number of years. Ramir, all the offensive line, they know him. So I'm not saying that like Sims is not a good leader and he doesn't bring that fire. But what I am saying is, no matter who you are, it's hard to establish that type of connection with your team whenever you've only been here for 8 months. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. So I just think from a feel standpoint, forget about productivity. He was better productivity-wise. So, like, that's a definitive argument. But let's throw that out the window. Just from an intangibles and from a feel standpoint, I think it's obvious who the choice should be. Obvious. It's Heinrich. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I agree. With almost everything you said. Almost everything. That made it sound like there was something I disagree with. There's nothing. No, there's nothing. Well said. Yeah. Well said, my friend. No, there's the intangible, like, decision making within quarterbacks. It's important. Yeah. Alabama's learning that right now the hard way too. You look at that. I mean, they
No
almost
doubt
lost
about it.
USF.
Yeah.
They probably should have.
I'm
USF,
starting to think that their problem's a little more than quarterback too, because if you watch that game, they sort of got physical a little bit here and there.
yeah, and
sorry, go ahead.
USF could have settled for a couple field goals that probably would have almost made them win the game.
Yes.
Like, you don't know how that would have gone. They
Yeah,
went.
they called an
downs-
aggressive game.
They did. I mean, you have to when you're that big of an
You're playing
underdog,
Alabama.
but
Yeah.
yeah, but who knows? Back to Nebraska.
Yeah.
But yeah. So starting QB, I would be really surprised if they trot Sims out there this week. How Haarburg and the offense played, getting that momentum, because the team needs cohesiveness and they need confidence. Because this
Absolutely.
team with confidence, we could do things this year, not just get it to a bowl game. We could do things with confidence because the team that lost these past 2 games, you saw it. You saw glimpses of it, and you're just like, they just need confidence. So who knows? Who knows?
I'm always whenever you talk about a team's confidence and momentum for a season, I always remember the 2008 season when we had a traditional opening where we played 2 games where we beat the crap out of them. Then we had a game where Virginia Tech came to Nebraska and we lost by like 10 points, decent game, but we lost. And then 3 or 4 weeks later, we played Texas Tech at Texas Tech. And Texas Tech that year, that was like the Mike Leach Texas Tech, pretty much at their peak. And we had been getting killed by them, I think 2 out of the last 3 years prior to that. So it was like, oh, here we go. We're playing Texas Tech. And we took them to the wire and lost in overtime. And even though we lost, there was something that happened to that team after that game that was like, okay, we're not a bad team. That was a legitimate top 10 team we just played, and we took them to the wire. And Sue went off. That was one of the first games I remember at Texas Tech. Sue going off. Anyway, that is what this team needs. Even a couple weeks from now, even if I think we've talked about this on the podcast plenty of time, we've harped on it. College football, especially, is a total game of momentum in the game by game sense, when you're just looking at within a 4-quarter game, and over the season sense. So I think that this is the first time this season that it's like, okay, we've caught a little bit of momentum. Even in that game yesterday, within the game, they caught a little bit of momentum. And now the game itself has lended itself for them to catch a little bit of momentum for the season. So if you're Matt Rule, it's like we finally got a guy at the helm at the quarterback position that's allowed us to catch a little bit of steam. So why would you just shut that off? You know, why would you risk not that it would shut off if Jeff Sims came in? Maybe he steps in and he's better than we remember him being, and all of a sudden the momentum still goes. But why would you risk it? Why would you even risk it? You're here. The team has confidence. They trust this guy.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. There's one thing that some of the talking heads are talking about, as they like to do, being talking heads. But the NIL piece of that, it's interesting, but that does not have anything to do with coaching or the team in general. It's not like the NFL where you've invested all this money in this person. You've invested all this stuff. That in college especially, those are local businesses that are deciding to do X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
They're deciding to do that. I don't think that plays any sort of part in the coach's decision in college football at this juncture.
Sure. It certainly shouldn't. It certainly shouldn't. Because the point you're making, basically a way to summarize it is, in the NFL, you have a salary cap, and so that's a direct tie to your organization. You have to manage that budget, and you have a boss telling you how to manage the budget. So it big time affects those types of decisions. But in college,
I put millions of money into this one player.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But in college, it's almost always, if it's being done the correct way, a third party that is promoting with the player, and they have a contract and a deal. So it's a third party. And even if you have like some SEC team that's, paying players directly from the school, it's not like there's a salary cap. You know what I mean? It's not so even if that is the case, like there's no salary cap right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if there ever will be, but there's no salary cap right now. So I kind of agree with your point. A lot of the talking heads have talked about, oh, Jeff Sims partnered with Acres Solutions. He's coming in, partnering with Amigos. Like they got to ride with this guy. I'm like, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean anything. Do you
Akers
remember
will
a couple
turn right around and sign Heinrich 2 weeks later? I mean, like they don't care, man.
Yeah. Do you remember when Dr. Pepper sold out on the new Clemson quarterback and he laid an egg that year?
Yeah.
Like
Uyandale. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's their choice to make.
Right.
And it's the kids that get to benefit off of that. Like Sims gets to benefit off of that, whether he's producing or not. But I don't think that influences the on the field decision.
Yeah, I'm sure Sims has a very nice apartment that's paid for, and I'm sure that he has plenty of money in his bank account to fly all his family to any game that he wants to fly them to or whatever. So I don't, like we've talked about, you don't want to be too hard because at the end of the day, this is a game, right?
Yeah.
Like we love it and it's more than a game and all the other, but at the end of the day, this is a game. So you don't want to be too personal against any of these people.
No.
But at the same time, they're also getting paid. They're just fine. You know, call it like it is my point. Just call it like it is. You don't have to be too personal. But we don't see Jeff Sims being the guy moving forward. I think that's safe to say.
I'd be surprised.
Yeah,
I'd be
I think
surprised.
that's safe to say. Yeah.
All right, moving on. All right, let's go to our normal format here: positives, negatives, one final thought. Let's be really quick. We're at 51 now. I mean, we don't have a time limit, but there's not much more we could talk about that we haven't. But let's go to positives. Obviously, Haarburg. Obviously, Fedoni, and obviously the defense. Any other ones outside of that?
I think that our offensive line created a lot of holes for our running backs to run through in certain moments. They also had some bad plays here and there. They're not the greatest unit in college football. But I do think they have made a marked improvement from where we were seeing them, especially in 2021. I mean, last year the offensive line had its moments here and there, but I mean, Casey got sacked so many times in so many of those games. And so I don't know. Did we give up 4 sacks yesterday? You said 4 sacks. That sounds pretty crazy. But there were moments that I saw our offensive line getting serious push and creating huge holes for our running backs to operate. So the offensive line is generally a positive. Generally a positive.
Okay. So my positive is the defensive backs, because even Minnesota was able to throw the ball on us. And granted, we got helped out a little bit. There were some drops that were good throws. We got helped out some, but for the most part, they kept the game in front of them. They played really well, and they showed a little bit more moxie than they showed against some other competition this year. That really made me a little bit more positive. Mm-hmm. Not that they played terrible. I'm not saying that at all, but they showed a little bit more good coverage that it just made me more positive on the group as a whole. Cool. But let's go into negatives. And I'll go first. So my negative is I was laughing because my negative is the offensive line. And you know, they whiffed on if you notice the offensive line, you know that they didn't have a very good game.
Yeah.
And I noticed the offensive line way more than I should have.
Yeah, agreed. In passing situations, especially
passing situations, they whiffed on a couple pulls.
Yeah.
That for some, there was one especially for the quarterback draw that, what's his name? He has an L last name.
Longval?
Yeah, maybe.
Luke Longval?
Yeah, whatever. Is that his name?
Was he a quarterback that played that wasn't Heinrich?
No.
Who are you talking about then? Oh, the lineman. Oh. Who are you talking about?
There was a pulling guard basically on a play, and he completely whiffed. That's one that sticks out. And
Nwili. It had to have been Nwili.
It wasn't Nwili. It wasn't Nwili. Nope. It was an L name. It was
Latovsky.
Latovsky, yes.
Latovsky? Okay.
Latovsky.
Henry Latovsky. Okay.
Latovsky. So him. I did like seeing Prochazka in there, and I noticed when he was in there, and I thought he blocked pretty well.
Yeah.
Won that left tackle this time. But
they run that jumbo 13 package, and they have him lined up in there basically as a tight end.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty interesting. I like that package. That looks old school.
Yeah, it does. But yeah, so some of the pieces on the offensive line, it's not even scheme, it's execution. So there's a couple of question marks there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the first time really this season that I'm like, that could have been worse. That could have been worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
so my negative I'm going to go into. So I talked about offensive line as a positive, which is fair because, there was moments that they had some positive push and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you talked about them as a negative, which is also fair because like you said, there were moments you noticed them and it was like, my negative I'm going to go into is special teams. I think there was a couple aspects of special teams. They need to figure out who their kickoff guy is, in my opinion, because they've been switching them off, and Tristan Alvaro had one kick that he kicked out of bounds. And I don't know if there's ever a situation where you intend to do that, but it doesn't seem like it would be something that would be smart to intend to do because they get the ball on the freaking 35-yard line. So, that wasn't very good. But the one aspect of special teams I really wanted to talk about was the punt return game. So I think that Billy Kemp is perfectly serviceable back there. I don't think he's going to make any dumb mistakes. He seems like he's got a good track of the ball, and he catches the ball well, which is, compared to a lot of recent years, positive, right? But I also think that this staff has tried to harp on a philosophy of being aggressive on special teams, and like we're going to return every kickoff, and we're going to try to make something happen in the punt return game and all that stuff. And I just don't know if I see Billy Kemp being that dynamic punt return man. I just don't know if maybe if they're giving him something, he can be able to take advantage of it. But I don't know if he's just going to be that DPE making three people miss and off to the races. And I'm not convinced we don't have that guy on the team either. Now, the trade-off in that situation is like, well, I know we have some pretty explosive freshmen, but are you really going to put a freshman back there to catch punts? That's a man's job.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that they have Billy Kemp on the field catching punts for a reason. But that is one thing I noticed is like, I think Billy Kemp's a good player, but I think he lacks a little bit of that explosiveness that you want in a punt return man.
Yeah. No, that fair. No, absolutely fair. I completely agree. I mean, we talked about that a little bit off air here. That he just, I mean, he's twitchy and he looks the part, and I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to make a mistake. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
One more negative I wanted to just touch on, because I feel like we wouldn't be doing justice if we didn't touch on this. I don't think we have I think our backfield is solid, but I don't think we have that like 3 steps and he's gone running back. I don't think we have the guys who can really like make a 20-yard play into an 80-yard play. I just don't think we do. Maybe Emmett Johnson's that guy. He's a younger guy who hasn't played yet. But I mean, maybe Ramir's that guy. We haven't gotten into those situations.
Unfortunately, Ramir got hurt. Yeah,
I
think he could have had a game.
I'm just saying, from Gabe Ervin and from Anthony Grant, I don't think either of them are that guy that, I mean, hell, 2010, think back to when we played Missouri in 2010. You watch Roy Helu in that game. Insane. Like you don't realize how much speed a lot of those guys we had back in the day had. Like Roy Helu was the type where if he had space and he had the sideline, he's probably going to score. Yeah. And I just don't think we have that guy in the backfield. I think our guys run hard, and I think they have pretty good vision for the most part. But I just don't think we have, for instance, Dylan Edwards. I mean, look, we watched that Colorado game last night, and there was this one play. It was like a stretch concept where he's reading, find the hole. And when he found the hole, it felt like Taylor Martinez in his first 2 or 3 games. It was that acceleration, you know? So that's one negative, I guess you could say, is like we really sort of need that fast, can turn a 20-yard play into an 80-yard play running back.
Fair.
Yeah.
I mean, part of that is getting the hole too.
No doubt
They
about
didn't
it.
have our running backs have done a really good job of finding room where there is none. And
Right.
again, then comes back to my negative, which the offensive line has not opened up holes like that. And you even kind of mentioned like how Swift on the Eagles this past week had a really good game. It's really easy to have a good game when you're running through in a completely wide open lane because their offensive line is just so
No
good.
doubt about it. No doubt
And
about
Cam
it.
Jurgens is starter. Don't know how many Husker fans know that. Starting right guard for the Philadelphia Eagles. So good on Cam. And he's actually making the defensive reads.
Right.
I don't know if you noticed that, but yeah.
Well, during the Pelini era, I feel like people forget that we had really good offensive lines with a lot of dudes who played in the NFL for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, were they the 2003 Kansas City Chiefs? No, they weren't that good, but they were good enough to have, you know, I mean, Amir Abdullah. When you talk about guys who can hit the hole and make 20-80, Amir is exactly who I think of, because I'm just saying, like, you put Amir in the backfield with this offense and with the types of holes that the offensive line was giving them yesterday, Amir probably makes one or two more guys miss and turns a couple of those plays into, you know, 80-yard plays. And so I just don't think we have that guy really in either room, the wide receiver room or the running back room. But I mean, again, last night was the first time we really even saw our offense operate at all. So it's a small snapshot, and we really don't know what the youth looks like yet. Because, like I said, based on the injury reports, I mean, supposedly Ramir Johnson and Gabe Ervin are hurt, unfortunately. Gosh. And so our running back room is really looking thin as it looks right now. AG being presumably the number one guy because he's the only one that's healthy. So with that being said, I hope we get to see some of Emmett Johnson this next week because I've heard a lot of good things about him. And I hope we get to see some more youth at the wide receiver positions too, because supposedly there's some speed in the freshman aspect of that room.
We'll see.
So
I did see Gabe Ervin just real quick, his post-game interview. Somebody asked him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm good."
Okay.
He said he's fine.
It's
I think
nothing
he might have
though. You don't limp off the field for no reason. So is it a strain, muscle strain? Is it a hip pointer? Is it a turf toe? We don't know.
He didn't limp off the field. He got hit on the sideline.
From what I remember, he got up and limped back. I mean, he was limping. Like, that's my point. He was limping and
I think he got the wind knocked out of him.
He was limping and holding his butt, like there was something wrong with his butt. Like, I've seen it a bunch of times. So it's like he doesn't do that for no reason.
A bunch of times.
And then Ramir, the weird part about Ramir was
I didn't even see him get hurt.
I texted you about beginning of the third quarter or so, and I was like, wait a minute, we haven't seen Ramir at all yet today.
Yeah.
And supposedly he was in street clothes for the game. So with all that being said, like I said, our running back room is looking thinner than we thought it ever would look. Quentin Ives is a freshman down there too. And, you know, with the 4-game rule with the red shirts, we might even get to see him soon as well. So yeah, we'll see.
One final thought. So yeah, you mentioned something, because I had another final thought that you kind of took, and it was about the running back injuries. But you said something like our offense finally cruised. One final thought I have is our play calling is still very much suspect. And when we hired Marcus Satterfield, I was cautiously optimistic. One, because he's worked with Rule before. Rule knows the kind of guy he's getting. He's been successful with him. And the South Carolina fans are kind of delusional. They just are. I mean, you could see that by just if you've followed any sort of college football, you know they're kind of delusional. They decide to blame certain things on, and you're like, what are you even talking about? So that being said, some of the play calling has been really suspect over the first 3 weeks. even this week, some of those third down play calls were not great. The third and long, like it was 3rd and 10, not 3rd and 10. It was like 2nd and 15, right? And he decides to throw 2 times instead of throwing trying to run, getting some of it back when they're playing off. The defense is playing off. So you could run a draw, you could run a lot of stuff out of that, get a couple of yards back, and then figure out third down. Just from offensive play calling, some of the things that are just like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to be too cute? It just doesn't. It felt more like an identity this week, like we had an offensive identity that we were trying to do, and we talked about that. Like, at least Whipple had an identity, and we knew what our offense was and what we were trying to do last year. So it is a little suspect, and I really hope that for the continuity purposes, they stick with Haarburg and they try to do what they did this week. I don't know what I'm trying to say, honestly, but like it's hard to quantify offensive play calling because it's why are you calling that right there? Why are you calling that? Like if you watch the Houston game last night, like that play calling was atrocious. That was atrocious. Like honestly, they should fire their coach. Like Dane.
Oh, quick funny story actually about their coach. I don't know if I told you that something that happened between me and Dana the last week. And I'll go ahead and put this out there. I don't even mind. So I'm a student at U of H, and so I go to class twice a week. I wear my Nebraska hat to campus, so rest assured, Husker fans, I'm representing even on a different campus. But so I'm walking back to my car from class the other day, and it happened so quick, I almost didn't even have time to process it. I was just like walking across the parking lot. I look up, and Dana Holgerson's like 10 feet from me. And I was like, the only thing I could think to say was like, hey, coach, give him hell this weekend. That's all I said. And he like looked up and kept walking. He didn't acknowledge it at all. We were the only 2 people in the entire area. He was not getting mobbed. Nothing was like, and I just like gave him some words of encouragement, and he just like completely blew me off. Yeah.
That's on brand. He was probably drunk walking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speculate too hard, but my thoughts were, I've been going to U of H for the last 25 years. And so my first couple years at U of H, I started going there in 2016. My first year at U of H was Tom Herman's last year at U of H. And my fraternity meetings were in the Alumni Center once a week. So I would always see Herman whenever I was going to meeting. So our paths just happened to align that way. So I would say, hey, coach, encouragement every week. And he always acknowledged, hey, thanks, go Cougs, something like that. And then on the week that he had backdoor agreed to be the head coach at Texas, I saw him again. Saw him Tuesday night, same time, or it was Monday night, I don't remember. Same time. And just like always, hey, coach. And he just looks down and doesn't even acknowledge me. And that's when I knew. I was like, oh, something's going on. Like he's accepted some job.
Yeah.
And with Dana, that's my theory is like, I don't know what it is. I don't want to speculate. I'm not saying he's in a scandal or anything like that. But what I am saying is maybe he just found out about some key player injury, or maybe he just got done with the game plan meeting and he knows they're going to get killed, or there's something going on there where he's not even paying attention to me. But anyway, so play calling. That's what we were on. We were on play calling.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I just think that to defend Satterfield, to play devil's advocate here, I think that it's been hard to even. There's been a couple moments in these first couple games where I completely agree with you, but it's been hard to even judge it as a whole because of the key fundamental mistakes that our offense has been making left and right. I mean, this last game was really the first, like we've talked about, was really the first sample size that was like, okay, we're getting to see what the offense is trying to be. And one encouraging thing I believe about that was I think the game started off and they had a script for Haarburg. and he delivered on the script. And then I think the next couple drives was sort of Satterfield saying, okay, let's see what we can do with this kid, what he's good at, what he's not good at. Let's see what we're going to be calling for the rest of the game. And so I'm not saying that like they just threw those drives out of the water, but they were definitely trying to see what they could do and not do with Haarburg. And the encouraging thing about that is as the game went on, I felt like the play calling really, really got more focused and really, really started playing into Haarburg's strengths a lot more. And it showed that it was a much more efficient product by quarter 4 and quarter 3 and quarter 4 than it was in quarter 1. So if that being our only real sample size of Satterfield as a play caller for an entire game, it's encouraging. I think that I don't know if he's going to be, the next Lincoln Riley, but I definitely think that we've had worse at this school. That's what I think about him so far.
Fair. No, and continuity does play a big sense, but I am being a little hard because I've seen stuff from game 1 where he threw the ball 3 times when we were trying to run out the clock, and that's terrible.
Yeah.
And then a couple times when your quarterback is to go under center. Like there's nothing you can't do under center that you could do from the shotgun. Nothing.
No doubt. We were dominating Colorado. He could have just gone under center and done an ISO game, and we would have like destroyed them.
Like he did this week.
Yes. What do you know?
No, but there was just a couple times when the offense started to stagnate a little bit, and he looked frustrated. And if you noticed, Rule was yelling at him at some points. So there's a little bit of frustration there that I'm just little licky lips.
Yeah. We gotta acknowledge that too. The licking of the lips from Rule, man.
Lips,
Weird.
licky lips.
Weird. I'm not gonna publicly.
He does it
state,
everywhere. Like
I'm not gonna publicly state what my real theory is on it, but yeah. Let's just put it this way. He had very chapped lips and a very
Nebraska's
very active
dry, dude.
face muscles.
Nebraska's dry. But he's also done that everywhere. Like that's just what he does. I think it's a nervous tick.
Yeah.
Because the second the game stopped, he stopped.
Oh yeah. People who have prescriptions have them for years. Let's just put it that way.
All right. What's your one final thought? Besides
that was your one final thought was the offensive play calling. Yeah. My one final thought is just on momentum, man. Got to keep the momentum going. I think that's one of the most important things for the year because in 3 weeks we play Michigan, and to be completely frank, I see this game going one of two ways. It's going to be a war of attrition between two teams because Nebraska's defense can totally keep up with them, and their offense is playing clean ball. But we lose close because Michigan just is deeper and will end up wearing us out. Or we go out there and fumble 5 times and Michigan murders us. Because guess what? If we have the performance we had against Colorado against Michigan, I mean, Colorado beat us 36-14 with that performance. Michigan will beat us 65-0 if we play like that against Michigan. Yeah. So on momentum, the important thing to me is just keeping this momentum going, ride with the hot hand, let your team play even better next week because it can improve on this. And the season's on because you win these next 2 games and you play hard against Michigan, and that's this year's Texas Tech versus Nebraska 2008. That's this year's version of it. Because if we can play hard against Michigan and we can be with them every play of that game and just make it a game to where we can look back at the end and be like, you know what, that was a playoff team and we were there with them. Yeah. If we can just do that, the year is on, man. And I really do think that the only team we've lost to in the Big Ten West is Minnesota. Now are you gonna tell me Minnesota isn't gonna have any more Big Ten West losses or conference losses generally? No, they're gonna have more conference losses.
At least Iowa beats them.
Yeah. So let's say we beat Minnesota and we beat and we lose to Michigan. That's 2 conference losses. So all we need Minnesota to have is 2 or more conference losses, and the entire year is open for us. All we got to do is beat the teams we know we can beat. So with that being said, I know this is a cliche, but all of our goals are still in front of us. It's just about 1 rep, 1 day, 1 moment at a time, just getting better 1 moment at a time. And if this team just keeps progressing and getting better, I do think there is talent there to have a little bit of an interesting wrench thrown into the Big Ten West this season. I mean, look, I think we can say to this point that, and we both sort of agreed on this opinion, so I think we can say to this point that both you and I were right about Wisconsin. Now, will they get their stuff figured out as the year goes on? I have no idea. I still think Luke Fickell's a really good coach. I still think they'll improve substantially from a game to game. But up to this point, what have they looked like? Up to this point, what have they looked like? They've tried to do their Phil Longo air raid stuff. It didn't work. They go back to their All-American running backs, and it's like, oh yeah, we're Wisconsin, and then they win. So they're sort of proving our point game after game. And so I don't think Wisconsin's going to be this big bad monster that everybody thinks they're going to be. I think that Iowa, oh my gosh, I wish I had this pulled up. Iowa, Brian Ferentz has to get like 329 points by the end of the year or something like that. Oh, I hope I liked this.
They took a good step this year, this week though.
Yeah, they did. That was the point. There's this one graphic going around on YouTube or going around on Twitter that's like it's like mountains. And it's like a ruler, like going up the mountain, and it's like 1 through 329, which is the points that Brian Ferentz has to get. And so they're like tracking his progress, and they're like, and the music playing in the background is like yolehu, yolehu. Yeah, but yeah. So I don't think Iowa's going to be a big bad monster. I don't think Wisconsin is. Illinois is not as good as they were last year. We've already played Minnesota. I think they're going to give up a game or two. And besides that, who we got? Michigan State. They just got murdered by Washington.
No, and Purdue and Northwestern are.
Yeah. I mean, look at that schedule. You know, like, look at that schedule. It's like, dude, we are the season is still on, man. The season is still on.
No,
we just got to keep improving.
And my season prediction so far, pretty damn on point. I'll just say that.
Yeah, well, who could have predicted?
Unfortunately, but
who could have predicted what that would have looked like, though? You know, like that's the surprising thing about what has happened these first 3 games is like we sort of expected, you know, some maybe 1-1 in the first 2 games or 0-2 in the first 2 games, sort of what both of us predicted, but the way it's looked with the superstar rent-a-car transfer quarterback we brought in, having 7 turnovers in those first 2 games, and now the hometown kid who we've known the name of for the last 2 or 3 years coming in and sort of looking like the savior. I mean, nobody would have predicted that at the beginning of the year, first of all. And second of all, one more thing that nobody would have predicted is the weird-ass scores of the last 2 games. 36-14, which is kind of weird, and then 35-11, which is really weird. Really weird.
I mean, when they went for 2, I was just like,
yeah. I mean, they were just trying to get in work. They're just trying to get work in for the team. That's all they're trying to do.
I guess that was just weird, and I was kind of pissed they let up that touchdown, but karma comes around, goes around.
Well, dude, Rocky Lombardi has not had enough reps yet as a Power 5 quarterback. He needs more reps.
He wasn't even the quarterback.
He wasn't. He wasn't.
No,
he wasn't.
It was their backup.
Oh, their backups were in.
Yeah, it was their backups versus our backups.
Man, I don't want to disparage you, but he was not very good. It was like
didn't have a lot of help.
Well, no, but there was that one moment where they were in I think it was it was when we had a quote goal line stand. It was a goal line stand. We had him covered. Watch the play though. The dude just falls over.
He just falls. I know. He had a couple plays like that when he was at Michigan State when we beat them 9-6.
Yeah, 9-6 game. In
the snow. Yeah.
Looked like our game template on Madden. That's what we always used to do with the snow games. Well, that was really more of our NCAA template when we would play Oklahoma versus Nebraska.
Next year.
Next year, we got to bring that back for sure.
Next year, we need to we need to Twitch stream our NCAA.
Yeah. Ice cream, yum yum, ice cream,
yum. But anyways, I know we're weird, but remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Cornhusker Corner on YouTube. My brother Brooks does a lot of work on a lot of other Husker streams, just being active and stuff. If you see his name. That's our channel. Just I don't know.
If
like and subscribe.
And most of the time, let me just put it this way: Blake does not endorse all of my opinions. And if you ever see me posting under the Cornhusker Corner name on other channels, it's 99% of the time. I would venture to say 100% of the time.
99.99.
Yes, it'll be me. 99.99% of the time, it'll be me doing the Cornhusker Corner posting on YouTube. So if I say anything crazy, take it up with me. Don't.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. I think I said like 3 weeks ago, before the season had even started, like we were joking around in one stream and people were already getting like frustrated with Rule, just like not legitimately, just like joking around. And then I was the one that went in there and was like, fire Rule. It got a huge laugh though, but yeah. We hadn't even seen anything yet at that
point. Follow us on X or Twitter at @CHusker_corner and Instagram Cornhusker Corner. I have been posting on there a little bit, some memes here and there. So I don't know if you like memes, just
what kind of memes? What kind of memes?
Well, I've been sharing some stuff that I've seen from Barstool Huskers. They've been posting some pretty prime content.
Yeah.
Do you even follow our Instagram?
No, I don't have an Instagram.
Okay. All right.
I don't even have an Instagram. Yeah.
There you go. Well,
Instagram is a giant thirst trap. It is. It is. Yeah. If you can tolerate being on Instagram, it's cool, but I can't. Podcast.